Weapons, uniforms, trucks, even mine-resistant vehicles used in Iraq and Afghanistan are seeing a second life in U.S. police departments. According to the Indiana Department of Administration, last year alone, the state saved approximately $14 million, and this year it's set to save around $13 million. Indiana law enforcement officials say the new gear is needed to protect the public from increasingly heavily armed criminals. Joining us today is John Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute and author of A Government of Wolves, the Emerging American Police State. Sir, thank you very much for joining me. Now, according to these jurisdictions, using anti-mine vehicles, etc., one officer offered this reason for their need for more sophisticated weaponry. Sergeant Dan Downing of the Morgan County Sheriff's Department stated, "The weaponry is totally different now than it was in the beginning of my career. Plus, you have a lot of people who are coming out of the military that have the ability and knowledge to build IEDs and to defeat law enforcement techniques." Are Sergeant Downing's concerns legitimate, in your opinion, about returning veterans?
Not what I see. It sounds like paranoia to me. Like there was an Indiana sheriff who recently said he needed an MRAP, which is the mine-resistant armored protection vehicle, which is 25,000 pounds and 25 foot long and basically a tank, that that America was in a war zone now. If that's true, then we're in a bad state of affairs, because if we're in a war zone, that means that the police are the military, which means that the American citizens are enemy combatants. That's the new paradigm, in my opinion. If that's the way the police are viewing this, we're in trouble. But no, working with military veterans across the spectrum, from the Air Force to the Marines, I don't see any of that. No, most of them don't own weapons, and many of them can't own weapons because of the fact that they are military personnel. We had the case of Brandon Robb, a 26-year-old Marine who was snatched from his home by the Secret Service Department of Homeland Security because of his Facebook post, anti-Obama Facebook post, by the way. He didn't even own a weapon. They didn't have the wherewithal to even get a search warrant to find out, and he was put in a mental hospital. We filed a suit and got him out, but I mean, he didn't even have a weapon. And many of the Marines I know and people coming back, no, they're very pro-America. And they don't run. And many of the crazy incidences that we've seen, bang, bang, shoot, shoot, and mall and stuff, they haven't been military veterans. So I see a lot of paranoia about veterans, and I don't like that. And if it's used as an excuse to arm police like they're, like the people in Afghanistan, then we got a problem.
Well, you've written about veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan being targeted by government programs. What can you tell us about these programs and their impact on our servicemen and women?
Well, Operation Vigilant Eagle is the one that the Marine I was talking about, Brandon Robb. It's a program of the Department of Homeland Security, the same agency, by the way, that's handing out the MRAPs cheaply to police departments, license plate readers and all those things. I think it's an excuse. I'd like people to show me, statistically, veterans being violent. We don't see a lot of that, no. And the thing I worry about is that we're sending those people over there to fight, and then they come back and we're making them targets, and we're punishing them, rounding them up because of Facebook posts. I mean, we've had cases where veterans have done anti-government Facebook posts, and the Secret Service or NSA arrives the next day and threatens them. This is free speech, folks. These guys are not waving guns and those kind of things. And the ones we work with, and many across the country, they're very pro-America. They don't like the police violence, but I haven't seen any of them shooting. But and I've written on, if you go to Rutherford.org, people watching this program, you can read my commentaries. There is a paranoia in the government, but I think part of that is propaganda. They're using that as a way to militarize the police for whatever they think might be coming in the future. But what I see is, in our studies here at the Rutherford Institute, is that small communities now have these mine-resistant vehicles. They have assault vehicles, grenade launchers.
Okay, well, let's look at the other side of this. Now, these days, criminals do have access to more sophisticated weaponry, cookbooks for bombs online, what have you. Is it valid for police to be concerned and want to be better armed than the hostage taker?
Oh, yeah, I would say yes, but again, we don't want to make, and this is the key, we don't want to make our police a standing army. That's what the Founding Fathers argued against, because they understood what a standing army was like. It can be tyrannous. 80,000 SWAT team raids where they're going through people's doors without warrants. We're starting to see the beginnings of something that's pretty darn ugly and is going to get worse and mirrors former regimes, by the way. So, sure, I think in situations where there's evidence that they need this kind of material, yes. But in towns with 15,000 people where there's no crime rate, why do they need a tank and grenade launchers? So that's the issue there. I think, sure, if it's valid, yeah, why not?
Okay, John Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute, thank you for joining me this evening.